Hi guys, this is Gevork again from Gev Loves to Read. As you might have seen, I changed the name of my channel from Gev's Book Reviews to Gev Loves to Read, just so I expand the scope of my channel to be essentially anything related to reading. So I might create a video about a poem that I like, or a series of poems, or speech that I like, or a short story, or whatever. So just to give myself more wider range of topics that we can create content for. But for this particular video, I am actually going to do another book review or discussion, let's say. I'm going to be talking about a book called That Was Then, This Is Now by S.E. Hinton, which was written in 1971. It was made into a movie in 1985. It was actually recommended by someone on this channel named Will Asmussen. So I guess, Will, thanks for commenting and recommending it. So for the people that watching this, I read the comments and I'm very open-minded about what books people recommend. I don't have like a million ideas of books to read in my head, so I'm open for suggestions. Actually, there's one person, Skater808, that's recommended Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, so I might give those a shot as well. It's just I'm a little worried about reading those because once, Harry Potter is, or either one of those are series, so if I start that, I might be only talking about Harry Potter for the next 1 or 2 months. It'll take me a while to get through that, but we'll see. I might get to that. But for this book, so I'll get into talking about this book. It was a pretty good book. It's a very short book. I read it in like a day. So for anyone that wants to read something that's pretty straightforward and easy to read, I would recommend this. It's a coming of age type book. It's kind of about young teenagers, 14, 15-year-olds growing into adulthood and all the challenges that come with that. So I think we all can probably relate to that book, to that if we're of a certain age. We all can at least look back into our past and remind ourselves what it was like when we were 15, 16 and trying to orient ourselves in the world. So the main character is named Brian. He's the narrator of the book, and he has this friendship with a guy named Mark, also about the same age. So the title of the book, That Was Then, This Is Now, refers to the fact that, well, their friendship was one way in the past, and it turns into something else in the future. So it just shows how a relationship changes over time as people maybe people change. Yeah, some of it is people changing, they're maturing, and they look at things a little bit differently, and at some point their characters are just simply too irreconcilable for them to really be friends anymore. And I think that's kind of how this book plays out. Mark was, his parents actually got into some kind of domestic dispute when he was 9 years old and ended up killing each other. So he ends up moving in with Brian, and they live together. So they're like brothers, really, more than just friends. And you have a couple other characters that are kind of come up in the story. There's Kathy, which is Brian's girlfriend for much of the story. They meet at a hospital, and she works at like a little snack shop at the hospital, and they have a courtship together. And I think that plays some role too in the deterioration of the friendship, because Brian ends up spending more and more time with Kathy, while Mark is not really in a relationship with anyone. So they grow a little bit apart because of that. You also have a character named Charlie, who runs this bar that Brian and Mark go to, and Brian and Mark go there to play pool. They're kind of like pool sharks. They go there and like hustle people for money. And one time they go there and they have these like two guys from Texas that they hustle, and they end up, they actually end up, going from winning from having like $5 to $25. And then as they leave, the two guys confront Mark and Brian, and they're like, "Hey man, what you did was messed up and all that." And they have a gun on them, so they actually end up threatening to basically shoot them for what they did. And then Charlie comes out and tries to de-escalate the situation, but he actually ends up getting shot by one of the guys and actually ends up getting killed. So that's like one sort of traumatic event that seems to have a big impact and they just look at it differently. Brian is so distraught about the whole situation, and but then Mark is like, you know what, it is what it is. That's what happened. So Mark is very impulsive and very, he doesn't really think through a lot of the things that happens. He just sort of goes with his instinct, and he doesn't really like question like, hey, could things have been done differently to prevent that from happening? There's another story where this guy Mike that they meet at the hospital, Brian and Mark, he gives this anecdote about, well, he tells them why he's at the hospital. And basically there was this black girl that was being treated badly by some white people where he was at, and he felt bad for her and comforted her, and then actually gave her a ride back to where she lives. So then he drops her off in this neighborhood, this black neighborhood, and then he gets confronted by these black guys there, and he's like, hey, they're like, hey, what did you do to this girl, or did you harm her in any way? And he's like, no, I'm just dropping her off. And but then the girl they asked the girl, hey, should we do anything to this guy? And she actually says, yeah, we should, you should kill him. Because I think she was very, let's say, traumatized by how the white guys were treating her, and this was kind of her way of getting revenge. And that's why the character whose name was Mike, was like, I don't have a lot. I kind of understand why she did it. I don't have any hard feelings. And then Mark is like, man, if they did that to me, I'd have killed him, or I would have definitely done something. But then Brian kind of sees Mike's perspective. So again, there's just all these little examples where Mark seems to be very impulsive in how he thinks about things, and he always wants an eye for an eye. And so I think he's just not quite as, let's say, mature and wise in how he thinks about things as Brian, or he's more impulsive, more aggressive, at least. There's another example where Mark and Brian hang out one time with Brian's old girlfriend, Angela, and they get kind of drunk together, and at some point Mark ends up cutting her hair, and then the next day, Angela's, I don't know, maybe brothers or someone related to Angela finds out, and they go and confront Brian, actually, instead of Mark, even though Mark was the one that cut her hair, and they get upset and start beating him up, and he ends up at the hospital. And again, Mark is like, hey, let me go get revenge for what happened to you, Brian. And Brian's like, no, just let's not go down that path. It is what it is. Maybe they had every right to be upset at us, and let's just put it behind us. So there's just all these little examples where the two characters just don't seem to see eye to eye on how to deal with different challenges that life throws their way. And then I guess the last straw for their relationship was actually had to do with a character named Eminem, which is Kathy's brother. So this kid ends up sort of running away from home, and he ends up going to this like hippie house with a bunch of hippies in it. And Kathy and her family doesn't know where this guy's living, and they want to find out. And then Mark tells Brian, I actually know where he is. and that's when we find out that he's in this like hippie house, and when we see him, he's like gone. Really, his brain has been kind of fried from taking LSD and acid and all this stuff. And then he sees these, and then Brian sees like pills and Mark's, next to Mark's bed or something like that. And he puts two and two together, and he's like, I think Mark is actually a drug dealer because he must have been selling these drugs to some of these guys. That's how he probably knew where Eminem was living. So, and then when he confronts Mark about it, that is in fact the case. We find out that Mark was actually a drug dealer, and at that point, Brian is so upset he actually calls the police, and Mark ends up getting arrested. And it's kind of more or less how the book ends, is with Mark being arrested, and he ends up serving like 5 years in prison. So that's kind of the story, and I think you can see from my telling the story that how the relationship disintegrates. I was reading some stuff today, and some people don't like the Brian character for what he did to Mark at the end, where he rats him out, because they were like close friends growing up, and they were like, he should have given him a chance and said, hey, just don't keep doing this, don't sell drugs. So then, otherwise, if you keep doing it, I'm going to have to report you to the police. But he just ends up, reporting to the police immediately and not give him really a chance to stop. So I think I read some things where some people didn't like Brian for that reason, and I can kind of see that. But I think Brian had sort of matured into being a pretty straight-laced kind of guy. And he seemed to do the most let's say by the book thing, and if he sees somebody committing a crime, he reported them. So maybe he shouldn't have done that. Maybe he should have given him a second chance. It's just, I think he was very upset at what he did to Eminem, because he had basically kind of, at least according to the book, he sort of really kind of ruined his life, let's say, or at least he did some damage to his brain because of all the drugs he took. And obviously, Kathy, who was his girlfriend at the time, was so, and her family was so upset about the whole situation that I think that affected Brian's decision in the end. So yeah, I think this, again, so ultimately, again, this is about relationships, human relationships, how friendships deteriorate over time. And I think, I think we can all relate to it, especially when you're young. People change a lot from when they're like 13 to say 20. You're kind of orienting yourself in your world. And I remember when I was in elementary school, I was like friends with certain people, and then I go to middle school, and it's like they were completely different. Like they changed so much, and I couldn't, like, I didn't know how to be friends with them anymore. So I can kind of relate to that. I think we've all dealt with that in our early development, our teenage years. So I think maybe this book is exploring that. And I think the other book she wrote, The Outsiders, is supposed to be similar themes, which I probably will be reading next, and that'll probably be my next book. So for anyone that wants to like follow with me on the books that I read, very likely my next book will be The Outsiders. So I guess let me know for anybody that has read this book. Well, I know Will Asmussen has read it because he recommended it to me. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe I'm missing something, or maybe I interpreted a different way. Maybe Mark was the good guy in this story and not Brian. Maybe Brian was... I sympathize more with Brian, maybe because I'm more like Brian. I'm not very like impulsive, um, aggressive type, the way Mark is. Maybe I should be more like that, because I think you need some of that too in life. You know, you can't just be so straight-laced and orderly all the time. Sometimes you need to be more of a aggressor too, and be dangerous, let's say. But you need to know how to channel that the right way, and I think Mark was not channeling it the right way. But yeah, that's really all I have on this book. So I hope you guys all have a great Labor Day weekend, and I'll be. I may make, like I said earlier, I'm gonna try out some new types of content. So I may make some videos about some speeches that I like, or poetry, or I might start doing stuff like that. But if not, I'll just be coming out with another analysis of a book shortly. I think, like I said, it'll probably be The Outsiders will be the next one I do. So also you probably noticed I went with a more formal look. I just did it for the hell of it. Maybe you guys will take me more seriously if I'm better dressed. So just kind of joking with that. But yeah, if you liked the video, I guess click the like button, comment below if you have any feedback on this book or on the video, and subscribe to the channel. Anyways, have a great day, everyone. See you guys.